for attending this event tonight. So watch out. The establishment has a long memory. They know who you are, and they're keeping a list. I have a little thought on some of the news of the day. I spent 3 hours on the radio this morning, but I feel like I never have enough time to talk about the issues of the day. So I want to say this, that I was thinking about this prisoner swap, that the president did. Yeah. Well, I kind of wish, thinking about this, that President Obama would have thought this through a little bit more. And maybe, for getting Sergeant Bergdahl out of captivity, instead of sending like 5 Taliban MVPs over there, he could have just traded one Eric Cantor. Sending the Taliban back to the battlefield eventually, that's not going to really help us. That's probably going to actually kill some of our people. Sending Eric Cantor back, though, for a little while, and make sure he gets treated well. I mean, that could actually help things, right? It could help our economy, stop so much spending, crazy stuff. People say to me, like, a couple of reporters were here today, and they said, why? Why did this national radio host, your television commentator, and a single mom with these 3 kids, why the heck are you down here in Richmond, Virginia? And here's my answer. Because we're slowly losing our country. Because the establishment has had its way for election cycle after election cycle, have kicked the electorate to the curb, sold out our values, misrepresented our views, looked down upon the very people who send them to office, and then expect us to get up and applaud for them and send them back to office election cycle after election cycle. And I said to myself, as long as I can still stand, as long as I can still talk, when I'm able to maybe help a little bit, get the word out to the press that frankly, for the most part, has been falling down on its job in the 7th District. I will, in my own way, make my voice heard. My mother, God rest her soul, was a tiny woman. She was about 5 foot tall, and she was 100% Polish. And my mother was, all right, good, I got the Poles here. By the way, Poland has been through enough. Can you believe Poland had to deal with Obama yesterday? I mean, that's just a bad joke. Poland, can't they just get a break? President Obama had to come over. But think about this. We have, in Dave Brat, someone who decided to inconvenience his life, his family, right? He didn't have to do what he's doing right now. He has a great life as a university professor at a wonderful school, Randolph-Macon, and he has a beautiful family. He wants to spend time with them. And he decided, like so many of our great leaders in the past, to give up their very comfortable existence, at least for a time, to try to make a difference in his country. And I think the fact that you showed up, the great numbers that you did today, we needed a bigger room, apparently, is a great testament to the fact that Americans cannot be held down for year after year. We will not be told we can't do it. We will not be told that we can't beat China anymore. We will not be told that we can't really enforce the immigration laws as they are right now. We can't. By the way, what are the first 4 letters of Eric's name? Just a question for the crowd. You guys are really smart. You follow the news and all that. Who do you think Barack Obama and Nancy Pelosi want to win this primary? Which candidate do you think they want to win? Why do they want Eric Cantor to win? They want Eric Cantor to win because Eric Cantor is an ally. And the biggest fight that will occur in the next 6 months to maybe even sooner in Washington, which is the fight for immigration amnesty. The little charade that took place 2 weeks ago here in Virginia, it was beautifully choreographed, wasn't it? something out of a wonderful Broadway production, Tommy Tune production or something, where you had Luis Gutierrez, who's a very liberal, very charismatic guy from Illinois, and Luis Gutierrez comes down to Richmond, right? And he does a rally of 70 people showed up. How many people do you think are here? 500? That's 70. Okay? Got a lot of reporters though there, right, for Gutierrez? Because Gutierrez has Casa de Virginia, House of Virginia, a lot of immigration amnesty groups holding up signs demanding that Eric Cantor give in to amnesty. That Eric Cantor, you need to do something on amnesty, as if Eric Cantor and Luis Gutierrez hadn't been touring the country together. Okay? It was like Simon and Garfunkel in the 70s. I mean, come on, sounds of silence, if only. All right? So they're touring the country last year, talking about how to make life work, or some ridiculous, meaningless titled tour. Joined at the hip, working together in a bipartisan fashion indeed, for the goal of immigration reform. Which means what? Thank you. It starts with an A and ends with a Y. Everyone knows how to spell it. Everyone knows what it is. Eric Cantor now is spending hundreds of thousands of dollars with the help of big business interests, the Chamber of Commerce, other huge interest groups that have a vested interest in opening up our borders to more foreign workers. And he is very concerned that the people of Virginia are actually going to stand up and fight for their own wages and their own way of life. Not because they're bad people or they don't like immigrants or they're racist or they're anti-Latino or Latina. By the way, I happen to have a Latina daughter. So when someone calls me anti-Latina, I take it very personal. I have this crazy idea, as does Dave Brat, that coming to our country, respecting our laws, our sovereignty, our way of life, and our Constitution is a conditioned precedent to your becoming an American citizen. I'm worried about Eric Cantor, though, seriously. I mean, I'm a humanitarian at heart. I know I seem like a tough cookie on Fox. I mean, I'm a humanitarian. I'm really worried about him, though, right? When you know friends that change. They say they're one thing, and then all of a sudden you turn around and it's like, wait, dude, what's happening here? There's something weird going on here. It's like the invasion of the body snatchers with Eric Cantor. Remember back in 2001? I mean, I was all Eric Cantor. I'm in for Cantor. Cantor was the conservative. He's a Reagan conservative carrying the mantle of small government. This debt is out of control. The idea of Eric Cantor voting to raise the debt limit time and again. I mean, did that really cross your mind in 2001 when you voted for him? And he has a beautiful family, wonderful kids. He's, nothing personal against Eric Cantor, but what happened? Oh, no, I'm not. So, yes. Oh, yeah, I just read this on Wikipedia. This can't be true, right? Wikipedia is always wrong. But he has a beautiful wife who also happens to be, like my friend Mary Madeline has to deal with this, liberal Democrat, pro-abortion, lifelong Democrat wife. Like, men out there, do you become more like your wives as time goes on? Right? Woo, you got to keep the peace at home, right? You got to do that. So I'm just saying. I'm just trying to be charitable. I mean, maybe that's it. I think you guys have to be worried, though. Okay, you got to be worried. The establishment always wins. Remember, they told Ronald Reagan that in 1980. Establishment always wins. Well, until it doesn't. Amanda Chase, who is Eric Cantor's former political director, gave a little interview recently, and she told National Review the following. She said that Eric Cantor is going to be hard to beat for 3 reasons. So I'm thinking when I'm reading this, oh wow, she's going to lay out the great policy successes of Eric Cantor, right? That he's done all this stuff, and it's great stuff for the success of the state. And all. Here are the 3 reasons she gave. Number 1, he's highly regarded among the GOP establishment. That's number 1. Wow, the same people who told us Romney was going to win in 2012, right? Yeah, that China will never surpass our economy. Terrific. He has big money support, okay? Number 2, that's the reason he's going to be hard to beat. Well, that's probably true. And number 3, he has name recognition. Now, can't you come to the table with something bigger than that? You have millions of dollars in support from interest groups that think they're going to get a piece of the pie when you get reelected, right? You got big name recognition, and the GOP establishment likes you. My friends, if the GOP establishment is investing millions into your re-election campaign, and they're giving you a big wet kiss and a big bear hug right now, that is the first and foremost reason that you should question that candidate. Dave Brat is a man of courage. If Dave Brat can survive as a conservative at an American university, if Dave Brat can thrive, not just survive, but thrive with a bold approach to teaching and writing and thought and an intellectual curiosity that is not beholden to a political party, but to eternal truth. If Dave Brat can survive and thrive in that atmosphere, look out, Nancy Pelosi. I'm also concerned about Nancy Pelosi because I think in the new rules that HHS is handing down, Botox is now not covered by the law. Look, I'm getting up there. I got to worry about that. I mean, let's be true. Oh, she's a good egg. San Francisco. I've got to be fair, though, to Eric Cantor because, look, he does have a legislative record. Let me just say what he said recently about his views on an important issue. He recently urged President Obama to, quote, ramp up pressure on Russia, noting that Russia was violating Ukraine's sovereignty and borders. Congressman Cantor, what about our borders? Is it maybe time to ramp up pressure on Obama to enforce ours? The same people who are now saying the GOP will die out if it doesn't embrace a new way of thinking. Immigration amnesty is just the most obvious issue that they're pointing to. If you don't become part of the new citizenship, pathway to citizenship, school of thought, then you're yesterday's news. Those same people are the ones who failed to recognize the housing bubble, Alan Greenspan's silly monetary policies. They're the same people who told us that McCain and Romney and Dole would win election after election. They're the same people who tell us that it didn't matter that our trade deficit with China was ballooning year after year, that trade and globalism and NAFTA and China getting into the WTO was all going to redound to the benefit of the American worker. I submit to you that the very people who are selling us this ridiculous establishment line on issue after issue are the same people who failed to raise the red flag, the warning flag, to the American people on critical financial and foreign policy issues. They failed, and they're failing now in their advice. I'd say fire them, fire their political consultants. I think of someone like an Eric Cantor, and I think of the great promise that he had, right? And look, nobody's perfect, right? We all fall down, we all make mistakes, and this is not a personal thing with him, right? But he did have a real shot. He had a lot of time in the House of Representatives to be the conservative leader for the 7th District of Virginia, not to be the big business leader of the 7th District of Virginia, but to represent his constituents, not to serve the donor class, but to serve the great working class, that lifeblood of this wonderful Commonwealth. He had that opportunity. He could have stood against This insane, persistent raising of the debt ceiling with no conditions. He could have stood against it. Instead, he looked down on those who challenged. He could have stood against this insane idea of engaging with a president who refuses to enforce current law, who has lied to the American people on everything from health care to the ridiculous promises of the stimulus and violating current law with this prisoner swap. He could have stopped this insane conversation about immigration, taken the issue off the table, bucked the Speaker of the House and say, don't you dare. Our people are underemployed and unemployed by the millions. There are more people out of work today than there have been in decades when you consider the true unemployment numbers, not the phony government numbers. And I'm standing with the American workers. I love legal immigrants. I love the immigrant experience. But if we don't shore up our country at home, we are all going down. We're not going to be good to Mexico or El Salvador or anybody. This is a cold, hard fact. Everybody up there in the cheap seats, you know it, right? Nosebleed. Look, if Eric Cantor is reelected, heaven forbid, I believe there's a good chance we'll have amnesty by the end of the year. There's some scuttlebutt, which just heard as I walked in, 5 days after the primary next Tuesday, John Boehner could start work on the path to citizenship, path to amnesty, whatever you want to call it. You know, we know what it is, right? I mean, oh, we're going to enforce the border. They're going to learn English. They're going to pay fines. They're going to do none of those things. They're going to do none of those things. There will be waivers and exceptions and bring the second cousin in and oh, sob story here, sob story there. I mean, guys, there are enough sob stories across the fruited plains of the United States of America now for legal immigrants, Latinos, blacks, single women, moms who want to work but can't find jobs. I wish the politicians, left and right, forget the political parties, would stand up and tell those American stories, those heartbreaking stories of people who cannot improve their lives despite the fact that they work harder every year, earn less, and their dollar doesn't go as far. Those stories need to dominate the media. In 2008 said this is our time. Remember the great acceptance speech? Historic moment in 2008 when he won. He said this is our time. Si se puede. Yes, we can. I will tell you this. We're at the breaking point in this country. We know what the debt is. We know what Eric Cantor's reaction to the debt this year was to vote for the Ryan Murray budget bill, which of course blew much in the way of the sequester caps that we had in place. Great thing that actually was accomplished, sequester, spending cuts. I know it hurt a lot of folks in Virginia because of a military deal, but my friends, we have to understand where we are right now. This is not 1999. We are in a hole. And I will say this, by turning out for Dave Brat, a man of great principle and great honor and integrity, you will be the dominant media story in this country for the next week. It will send a shockwave through Washington, D.C. I say, like, think about this. Do you want to live in a country where about 100 really rich families control most of the decision making? Or do you want to live in a country where the working people, the law-abiding people, the people who honor our founding principles get a say and have a chance at a better life? I think the latter is good for everybody. It's good for Democrats. It's good for everybody out there. That's what we need. And that's exactly what the current GOP leadership needs the little campaign that could to rise up. People said to me, Laura, it's it could be kind of tough for your brand, right? If things don't go Brat's way. I mean, the polls are, I don't care about the polls. Well, it could be bad that, what if he loses? Is that bad for you? Look, I don't Google myself. I don't care what people say about me. If MSNBC is like mocking me, I consider it a good day. Brothers, and a mom who was a waitress till she was 74. I come from working people. If I have to clean toilets, next week, that is a job that this American will do, by the way. I'm happy to do it. I love that line, by the way. These are jobs that Americans won't do. Like, what about all of us who actually did those jobs? Like, I picked blueberries. I did childcare as a kid. I was a waitress, not a very good one, but I was a waitress. Got fired twice. I'm not very good in the service industry, let's face it. No, and it wasn't just liberals I was waiting on. There were some conservatives I wasn't serving well either. But, guys, I think it's really time for us also to be, and it's hard sometimes, but to really remember my boss, Ronald Reagan. When he walked into a room, and I was all of 22, right? I was just a junior peon, little speechwriter in the domestic policy shop. And when he would walk into a room, and I'm going to say figuratively, but it felt like it lit up. There was a special glow, and it was his courage, going back to courage, of his convictions. He knew that there was always going to be people who really didn't much like him. In fact, hated him, thought he was stupid, too old, too this, too that. But he knew that there were truths that will withstand the test of time. And we can only avoid truths either in our own lives or in politics for so long. And then the top boils over. Okay? I don't know if we're at that point yet. We're close to it. We're coming close to that. So I remember the happy warrior. I miss him every day. I see, and I'm not exaggerating, that happy, positive, can-do spirit in the man of Dave Brat. I'm so glad. And remember, when Eric Cantor loses next Tuesday, well, he'll be fine. There are plenty of lobbying firms who are going to want him to work for them in the near future. And maybe it's just time that some of these kind of long-term politicians have to do what the rest of you have to do. Get a real job. I am finally going to say this one thing. We have an amazing country and an incredible tradition. I know so many of you commemorated Memorial Day just recently, as did my family. And we've been through much worse than this. I know sometimes it doesn't feel like it, like, oh, the press is always against us. We can't get our message out. Look at the demographics of the changing country. The people are just tuning out to politics. They're not paying attention to what's happening. It's easy to get defeatist. But what I'll tell you tonight is, there's no reason to be defeatist, right? You believe in eternal truth, right? You believe in, and many of you are faithful people, you believe in the Almighty. I do. And I think that He has big plans for us. Yeah, let's give a round of applause. Yeah, someone said to me the other day, I was walking down the street, she said, I hope that we don't live in a country one day where they don't allow you to wear this on TV. And I said, I'm going to, my old friend Chuck Heston, out of my cold dead neck, we're going to have to take this. Be of good cheer. What the left and the establishment GOP want to do is paint you as a bunch of people who don't love but hate, who don't have a positive sense of the future, who are negative and cynical and don't have a real sense of joy about life. I do. I look in my children's eyes. I left them today. They said, "Mommy, where are you going? Where are you going? Why aren't you coming home tonight?" I said, "I'm trying to save America." And my daughter, Ray, was 9, said, "Okay, see you tonight." She's like, "That's Mom." But be of good cheer, right? You're only going to win if you have that sense of optimism and that sense that we have been through much worse. Think of Ronald Reagan, Bill Buckley, Phyllis Schlafly, Brent Bozell Sr. in 1965-66. The country was in decline. The 60s were upon us. Vietnam malaise, moving into Watergate. The Republican Party was pretty much a washout. The establishment was just in a mess. And they kept their heads down and they kept going. And they knew that ultimately this thing would turn. I believe that. I believe we're reaching that point again. There's going to be a realignment in politics. I think some people on the left, believe it or not, are going to work with us on some issues. Yes. I welcome that. I'm looking for ways to work with everything from my cause of adoption to issues of trade. We might come at it from a different point of view, maybe even for different reasons, but that's okay. In the end, if we get to the same place, so what? What's wrong? Look, I'd rather work with some people on the left today than work with some people in the GOP establishment instead. A one-woman drone tonight, and with lethal force. I don't want to keep going on, but I will say I wouldn't come down here unless I thought this was critically important, unless I believed in 100% in this man, Dave Brat, who I've gotten to know his family. These are good people, and they know how hard it is. And when people even around who are surrounding Dave say, "Dave, it's going to be tough. You know, the polls are tightening, but they have so much money." I just saw him the other day. He said, "The people are with us. People count behind us."